My Uncle David, Francis, was 18 years old in 1965, and he had a bronze-colored 1964 JaVale, a car, and we drove it down to Long Beach, California, to pick up Uncle Tony after he'd flown in a seaplane from Catalina Island. He was 23 years old, and he was working as a bartender at one of the popular bars on the island. It was always fun being around Uncle Tony. Just a year or so before, he had traveled to Spain and a few other European countries while traveling by buses and trains. I admired his free-wheeling swagger, and in my later years, I too traveled just like him, on buses and trains seeing the world. I loved sharing the bedroom with Uncle David Francis. I never had a brother before, but our relationship was just as close as that. We went everywhere together. He was 18 and I was 12, and I was treated like a little man. It was during that span of time when living in the Encino house when my childhood came to an end. We both started working at the Domingos Italian Delicatessen on Ventura Boulevard in Encino, California. They were a true Italian family, something like you would see in an Italian motion picture in Bronx, New York. There was Papa Domingo, Mama Domingo, and their 20 years old son, and what a wonderful atmosphere I had when working there. David Francis and I would be working behind the counter taking food orders from customers and cutting cheeses, sausages, and salami. When breathing in my nostrils of the wonderful smells of all the food and spices, I felt like I was in an Italian paradise. I had recently watched the motion picture Mary Poppins starring Julie Andrews and Dick Van Dyke. On one ordinary day, I was standing behind the counter when I heard a voice wanting to make an order, and I looked up and saw in the eyes of actor Dick Van Dyke. And he was standing there without any makeup or wearing a costume, and stupid little me thought to myself that I was actually taking an order from a Hollywood star. My friends back in El Cajon wouldn't ever have believed what just happened to me on that day. I soon found out he was one of our neighbors, and I was told that actor John Wayne also was living only a short distance away from us. We were surrounded by television and motion picture celebrities, and it took me quite a while to adjust to this reality. Soon thereafter, I realized that I was living with a Hollywood star, my Uncle Victor Charles. It soon became normal seeing celebrities sitting outside the Domingos Italian Delicatessen under their umbrella tables when seeing actor Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. of 77 Sunset Strip drinking coffee, chatting, and laughing with his celebrity friends. It was a common event, but when living in El Cajon, California as a young boy, I never experienced what I was now seeing and hearing. With every day while living in my new life, the memories of El Cajon were steadily fading away. My Uncle David Francis was attending at Los Angeles Pierce College, and I was going to Castel Portola Junior High School at 18720 Lynette Street, Tarzana, California in 1965. Being in the company of my Grandma Merritt, Victor Charles, David Francis, and Uncle Tony was liberating because I was living in an adult atmosphere where no babies were ever allowed to be seen or heard. David Francis and I would take a drive out into the desert, and he taught me how to shoot tin cans from a distance using a .22 caliber rifle, and it was just like his father Victor Francis once did with him as a young boy. I was never treated like a little boy in Encino, but I was treated like a man, something that I never felt when living with my parents in El Cajon. Once in a while, David Francis and I would pick up some cold cans of beer and hot pizza, and we drove up on the top of a hillside overlooking San Fernando Valley, eating and drinking, and we were feeling completely free and happy in those wonderful days together. He was 18, and I was nearly 13, and we were united brothers. Victor Charles was extremely busy during 1965 by performing in television programs, motion pictures, and acting on theater stages. When he was at home, he was usually quiet and charging up his batteries, and I would tippy-toe by him in the den when he stretched out on the comfortable sofa, memorizing one of his new scripts. On May 24, 1965, Victor Charles was at the Oak Globe Theater in San Diego, California. He was performing solo in remembrance of things past. I remember sitting at the Encino kitchen table with Victor Charles for lunch, and I believe it was director Robert Aldridge or some other director was sitting on my left. We were eating steak, and the director showed me how Europeans held their silverware when eating. He held his fork in his left hand and his knife in his right, and to this very day, I eat exactly that same way how he taught me that day. Our German Shepherd dog, Sergeant, was my best buddy when David Francis wasn't at home. And I would take him outside onto the lawn, and I would wrestle with him, and pretending I was a Christian slave who was tossed into the Roman arena, and Sergeant was a vicious, hungry lion wanting to eat me up. We would roll over and over, and he would take little soft bites on my arms and hands, but he never hurt me, because he must have known it was just all in good fun. I remember when the son of Mr. Domingo took me to the Staples Center Stadium to watch the Los Angeles Kings hockey team play that night. We had a grand time, and to this very day I have fond memories of how nice he was to me. Each day I grew more mature and confident, and every new day was a new, unique revelation to me. In the evenings, Grandma Mert would sit up in bed and crochet colored hats for Victor Charles. It became a habit for him when he appeared on the Johnny Carson late night show, bringing his brand new crocheted, multicolored hats that she made for him. When she crocheted, she always had a Lucky Strike cigarette between her lips. She was a big smoker, and I was always amazed of how she could keep the thick stream of smoke from getting into her eyes. This was a special time when being with my grandmother Mert, and she always had an answer for every question that I asked of her. One of my favorite memories being alone with my grandma Mert was when I was sitting at the kitchen table and she was washing dishes, and I asked her if she had any stories of her first husband, my grandfather Louis Rupert Erreca, who died at 37 years old in the first 2 weeks of the beginning of World War II. She stopped washing the dishes and just stood there quietly for a moment, and she softly said, "I often looked out this kitchen window thinking your grandfather would just pop up and surprise me with a big laugh. He was a prankster, all right. He always kept me laughing.